Greetings, brethren of the heavy. Welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and today I'm doing something a bit different. Got something a little bit special for you. I'm going to be going through some of my favourite EPs, some of my top pick EPs. I'm not going to say my all-time absolute favourite EPs ever categorically, because chances are I'm either forgetting some, I'll remember some later on that I wish I had added into, and also some I just couldn't ignore here, some I had to begrudgingly leave off the list, and in fact it was my top 5 until about 30 seconds before I sat down to do this particular review, because I caught a glimpse of one EP which I absolutely can't believe I'd forgotten about it, to be honest. So this is in fact 6 of my favourite EPs of all time. Technically it's 7 with honourable mentions, but I had no idea about how difficult this was going to be. This has been an idea that's been rattling around in the back of my brain for a little while now, and I thought, easy. I can think of 3, 4, 5 just off the top of my head. It's not until you actually look at your music collection and you actually go through those EPs and you think, bloody hell, that's a good EP. Yeah, I absolutely cannot miss that off the list. And before you know it, you have a silly number. So I've whittled it down to 6/7. Without further ado, we'll start by mentioning the album which I just remembered. This absolute monster of an EP. This is the Horseback Battle Hammer EP by sludge doom legends Conan. Absolute powerhouse they are. This is 4 tracks and it's a long EP. We're talking over half an hour. Their songs tend to be quite long, but it is absolutely divine. It is mercilessly heavy. It's so sludgy. It's like caveman doom. You get some killer tracks here. Crawl, the first track, that is so weighty. It just flattens you with these huge walls of riffs, these huge doomy drones. Satsumo, it's got a almost a bit of a Sabbath vibe there. It's just so good. Dying Giant, so freaking heavy, and Sea Lord as well. I honestly cannot overstate the heaviness of these riffs. Conan, every album is super freaking heavy. They don't have a bad album at all, but I think this is one of their greatest moments. It is so weighty, so doomy. It is an absolute masterpiece. If you like doom and you like riffs that could flatten a skyscraper, this Horseback Battle Hammer by Conan, UK doom lords that they are, check it out. Second pick, one of my favourite death metal bands actually, the Mighty Vader from Poland. Just a phenomenal band. They really do bridge that gap between Slayer-esque thrash, the heavier end of thrash metal, the Teutonic stuff, and death metal. Good old school death metal. These guys have been around for a long time. This EP, the Morbid Reich EP, came out in 1990, and you've got some cracking material here. 2 of my favourite Vader tracks are on here. You've got Breath of Centuries, and then you've got The Final Massacre. The Final Massacre does appear in numerous forms throughout their early releases. I think it might even appear on the Necrolust EP as well. I'm not entirely sure, just off the top of my head, but it does appear on the debut album, and it's just a phenomenal release. Short and sweet. It's just old school death metal with a nasty edge. Very thrashy, very raw, very harsh, but it's great. All of it is just rough and ready. Vader, Morbid Reich. If you like old school death metal and you're not familiar with these guys, then you're missing out big time. But if you like very thrashy death metal where you've got plenty of great, amazing riffs, plenty of chug, plenty of grit, it's quite raw, it's got a real harshness, almost like a black metal lean to it, This is not an EP to be missed. Morbid Reich, Vader. That's my second choice there. Keeping with the black metal leaning, we'll go outright black metal with one of Mayhem's greatest offerings. This is the Wolf's Lair Abyss. This EP came out in 1997. This was 3 years after that album, D Mysteries, Dom Satanus, just rolls off the tongue, of course. But this is a next level heaviness. That album is untouchable. It's a defining moment in black metal history, of course. But the tracks we get here are equally as good, if not a little bit better. And it's just such a bizarre twist that 3 years after this, we then had Grand Declaration of War, which completely, in my opinion, just derailed that amazing pace that they were producing this crushing, nasty black metal material. It just fell flat, in my opinion. But this EP has got some fantastic material on it. I Am Thy Labyrinth, Fall of Seras, not really sure how you actually pronounce that, Ancient Skin, and Symbols of Blood Swords. Blast beats galore, nasty shredding riffs, absolutely ungodly vocal performances. This is harrowing stuff. This is heavy, this is rough, and this is nasty. Wolf's Lair Abyss, without a doubt, as I say, some of my favourite Mayhem material, and this is just a top-notch EP. Only 5 tracks, one being sort of an intro piece, but this is just black metal beauty. Black metal at its crowning nastiness. Wolf's Lair Abyss by black metal legend Mayhem. So, we'll keep things in the dark vibe for now. We'll go with one of my favourite bands of all time. This is only a short EP. I've talked about it very recently, as I feel that Triptykon are such an underrated band, but the Shatter EP that accompanied their first album, their debut, is a short and sweet EP. As I say, you only really get 2 original full tracks, Triptykon tracks. You get one sort of instrumental or atmospheric interlude piece, and then you get 2 Celtic Frost cover live versions or live renditions. I guess it's not really covers because of course it is Tom G Warrior, but you get 2 tracks there, one of which you get, I mean both versions are fantastic, 2 really reliable Celtic Frost tracks. You get Circle of the Tyrants and Dethroned Emperor. Dethroned Emperor features Nocturno Culto from Dark Throne on vocals, and he does a superb version, absolutely. But the 3 tracks that you get, Shatter and I Am the Twilight, are 2 of my favourite Triptykon songs. Shatter is so harrowingly dark and heavy, such emotive material, but it's just so crushingly heavy. As soon as I hear that bass tone ringing out, thundering out like an echo, it gives me goosebumps. It's absolutely amazing. And then you've got I Am the Twilight, which is one of the heaviest moments that Triptykon have produced. It's so heavy, these massive riffs. Tom's vocals are just brutal. It's just freaking amazing. Give me goosebumps just thinking about it. And then the sort of interlude piece we get here is Crucifixus, which very, very neatly follows on and does sound quite a lot like the triptych outro pieces, I suppose, that we had on Monotheist, the last Celtic Frost album. We had the triptych, 3 tracks that were we had a lot of very dark atmospherics, a lot going on there. A lot of ambience, a lot of soundscapes, very dark stuff, but it painted such an intricate picture. But this EP, it's so good. those two tracks alone, Shatter and Eye Under Twilight, are more than worth hearing. They are two of the best Triptykon songs, certainly in my opinion. So that's 4. On to number 5. And we're going completely in a different direction now. We are going with symphonic metal royalty, Nightwish, and their 2001, I believe, 2001 this was released. Yep, I think it was. The Over the Hills and Far Away EP. So this was based around a Gary Moore cover. This EP followed on from the Wishmaker album, so they'd been on quite a good trajectory. They'd been building their career, building their fan base, succession of good, well-received albums. But this EP really did help to solidify them as being symphonic metal supremacy. Really did take them to some new heights. And as I say, based around the Gary Moore cover, they do a really good version of it. It's very folky, but they do such a good version of making it into a symphonic metal song. Tyre's vocals are phenomenal, of course, but it's the other tracks, I think, in my opinion, that really stand out. We get, certainly on this version, and I don't know why, but I do have 2 different versions. I've got another version floating around here somewhere. But on this particular version, you get 10th Man Down, which is without a doubt one of the heaviest moments, certainly in the early career of Nightwish. It's a really dark song, but it's very heavy. You get some amazing riffs there, and Tuomas Halopainen, some fantastic key work in the background. Tyre's vocals, of course, are amazing. But 10th Man Down is one of my favourite Nightwish songs. I know it's certainly a fan favourite for a lot of fans as well. Then we get Away, which is a slower paced, very emotive, very gothic. There's a lot of gothic sort of darkness there. It's a very good, very moving song. Tyre's vocals are amazing there. Very different pace and certainly difference in intensity or heaviness compared to 10th Man Down, but it's another good track. And then we get another version of Astral Romance, which appeared on one of their earlier albums. I think it was on the debut album, Angels Fall First. In fact, I will just check that. Yes, Astral Romance is on Angels Fall First. So we get a new version, a re-recording, if you like. And then on this version at least, you get a run of live tracks, some really great live versions of tracks like The Kinslayer. We get Sacrament of Wilderness. We've got Walking in the Air, which is still a nice piece. Wishmaster and Deep Silent Complete. So you've got some really good stuff there, some really good live material, but also you've got a few really good studio tracks. Certainly, I think just 10th Man Down absolutely makes this EP, but Over the Hills and Far Away is a really good cover as well. So there we have it. We're now down to the joint number 1, in my opinion. Now, I couldn't choose between the 2, but I do think as these sort of come as part 1 and part 2 of a package. Down for part 1 and part 2. I can't remember colour-wise which way around. I think the first one was purple EP and then whatever colour. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But the Down EP, Down 4 EPs, part 1 and part 2, they are absolutely phenomenal. Some of, if not the best Down material is contained within these EPs. I mean, just take Levitation, Witch Tripper. These are freaking heavy. This is doomy as hell. You've got plenty of that Sabbath vibe. Not quite as sludgy and sort of brutish as Nola, but they've come a long way, and the material you get here is very diverse. It's very varied, but it's freaking heavy. Phil's vocals are harsh, nasty. They are just rough, and he sounds great in the best possible way. Kirk Winstein, the riff lord, delivers some superb riffs here. Certainly on tracks, like I say, Witch Tripper is just instantly memorable, instantly catches in the ear. The Curse is a Lie. Oh, it's freaking amazing. On the second EP, we get some really good, more diverse material as well. Conjure, for example, is so doomy. It is just, it's a slow, rumbling, Sabbath-esque passage, and it's a long song, but it sounds amazing. Steeples, or Steeple, the opening track, it's freaking heavy. Bacchanalia, the closing track, again, really heavy, but you get so much diversity. So in total, you've got 6 tracks on each, 12 tracks. But I just couldn't pick between them because, to be honest, they're both as good as each other. If I'd really had to, I'd just pick one. I'd probably have to go with the first one, in fact, part 1. But they come as part of a package. The sound is very consistent, very similar on both, but you get so much diversity, so much mix in there. The riffs, the vocals, the drums, the bass, everything is just top class, just first rate stuff. Down 4, part 1 in fact, and part 2. Not an EP or a couple of EPs to miss if you like, as I say, Sabbath-esque doom, very heavy, groovy, sludgy metal. So there you have it. My top 6/7 EPs. We've got Conan's Horseback Battle Hammer. We've got Vader, Morbid Reich. We have Mayhem's Mighty Wolf's Lair Abyss. We have the harrowingly heavy Triptykon with the Shatter EP. Then we've got the very folky symphonic Over the Hills and Far Away by Nightwish. Part 1 and 2, Down 4, the EPs. Some of my absolute favourite material from Down, 100%. But there were a couple of honourable mentions for things I couldn't quite justify putting in to the list, actually. And of course there'll be many more that I'll think of later. But couldn't really decide if this could go in the list or not, because I've only heard The Dungeons Are Calling alongside the first Savatage album, Sirens. So if you're not familiar with this is the band Savatage, prog metal gods they are. Certainly released more than a couple of very, very highly regarded albums. Just a great heavy metal band, but very progressive. Their debut album, Sirens, was recorded at the same time as what is listed as The Dungeons Are Calling, which was slightly shorter, but neither was long enough to really justify being called a debut album. But they did come out separately, but then they were banded together as they were recorded at the same time. They were repackaged later on as the complete session. Sirens, debut, full length, and the Dungeons Are Calling EP. You get some of my favourite Savatage material on this album. I think that overall, this or possibly Hall of the Mountain King, I think a lot of fans will also pick either this or Hall of the Mountain King to be their favourite releases from Savatage, but I think you get some absolutely cracking material on here. But because I've only ever heard it as a full piece like this, a complete session, not as a standalone, I thought, no, it's almost like I'm dissecting the album, and that just doesn't quite make sense to me. But if I was to take it just as a standalone EP, The Dungeons Are Calling is an amazing track. By the Grace of the Witch is a really rocking metal track. Midas Night, City Beneath the Surface, you've got some great tracks there. But as I say, I've only heard it as the complete package. So to me, it's not really an EP. Same story with this. Napalm Death, Death by Manipulation. So this is essentially an EP compilation. It's got in total 19 tracks, compiling various different EPs, including Suffer the Children EP and Mass Appeal Madness. But because I've only heard it as this full album, this long album you could say, rather than just individual EPs, didn't quite sit right to me to, in my mind, to dissect it and take, a few tracks out. Such as if I was to say just the tracks from the Suffer the Children EP, that would be taking tracks 5, 6 and 7 halfway through the album. Just didn't quite sit right. But grindcore / death metal gods that they are, Napalm Death, Death by Manipulation, compilation of EPs, and just great material. Tracks that, for various reasons, were either recorded specifically for an EP or reworked. It's just a great listen. Certainly something for the fans, but it's just a good, grinding, heavy compilation there. So there you have it. I'm very interested to hear what people have to say about my top 6 / 7 EPs. But, what are your favourite EPs? I'm interested to hear. Do you share any similar preference there? Anything in common? I'm quite interested to know. Thank you very much for watching this rather special and very challenging review, but hey, I felt like it was worth it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe as always, and check back soon for more reviews of all things good and heavy. You take care, my friends, and stay heavy.